Hey guys, welcome to Big Loz Official. Today I have the absolute honor of hosting a legend of Strongman, Mr. Magnus Samuelsson. Thank you so much for coming on. A lot of people probably won't know this, but you're actually my favorite Strongman growing up. So this is a big honor for me.
Thank you, sir. You honor me. Really nice to be here. Thank you.
Good stuff. Just firstly, can you hear me okay? Because I had a bit of a problem with the mic yesterday.
No, I hear you good.
Excellent, good. Okay, so we're going to go back to the beginning of your Strongman career. I think you actually got involved in Strongman by accident, if I've heard correctly in the past. You know, you came from arm wrestling, and eventually went to World's Strongest Man. I think you were just asked to have a go at it, weren't you?
Yeah, for me, I fell in love with weight training, but it didn't really have a purpose. I was just training for the joy of it, and then after some time, I came in touch with the sport of arm wrestling, so I started to compete in that, and I just tagged along with it. I did that for I don't know 3, 4, 5 nationals or something.
Yeah.
And then one day I had an injury. I was arm wrestling this big guy from Finland, and I hurt myself a bit, so I had to stay away for a few months. And during that time, I did some other stuff. I went to bench press meets, and after one of the bench contests, there were a strongman contest. Okay. So my wife the thing where we were out, me and my girlfriend at the time, now since 25 years, my wife, we were out, and we were at this amusement park for this bench press meet. And then on the banquet afterwards, they said that tomorrow they're going to have the first Sweden Strongest Man inside the amusement park.
Yeah. Then
my wife signed me up just to make sure that the whole gang can get in for free. So it was more a gag than anything else. And then the next day, everybody came in for free. Everybody had a really great day, except me that has to pull trucks and in cars and stuff. And when the sun passed the horizon that evening, I won the contest. And well,
so that was your first contest, and you won it straight away.
Yeah, I don't really know how to say this, but for some reason, when I was young, I was quite athletic. My first sport were track and fields.
Yeah.
So I was kind of used to move my body, and then as a farmer as well, I was kind of used to have my body as a working tool more than just being like a gym guy. So, and I knew a lot about strongman. I've been watching Casmite and Jon Paul Sigmarsson, like they were been my source of inspiration since day one, more or less.
Yeah.
But I never tried it. And in my eyes, I were far away from being in their level. So for me, it was just the hoax. I did the contest. I was kind of surprised that I won it. Came home, waited, 2-3 weeks, and then the phone rings, and it's TWI asking if I want to go to World's Strongest Man.
And that was that 94?
95.
95 was your first?
Yeah.
Okay. So where was the 95 World's Strongest Man?
Were Paradise Island, Bahamas.
Okay, so a nice one for the first one, yeah?
It's a good start. A really nice start.
There's been some lovely venues for World's Strongest Man, I have to say. Especially back then. I mean, I used to love watching, obviously in the kind of 90s, as a kid, I was watching a lot of Strongman. And it was always somewhere glorious.
It was fantastic. For me, we made jokes about that. It was kind of the traveling agency, TWI, sent us out somewhere every year. But you know how this works. It's easy looking back now, knowing that I don't know if I made 14 World's Strongest Man or something. Wow. But back then, you never know if this is the one and only one, or if when you do the second one, you think maybe this is the very last thing I will do. It's one of those sports where an injury and you could be gone 10 minutes from now.
So I know all about that.
I love the sport, but it has its problems. So, and that's the beauty of it all, that you kind of have to learn to enjoy the moment and kind of you learn to live life a bit. But back then it really were nice places. There were, if I don't misremember, one of these casino chains that sponsored the World's Strongest Man. We went to always somewhere out in the beaches.
I remember watching you guys in the Bahamas and Mauritius and, you know, all these gorgeous, gorgeous places.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to some nice places, but a lot of the World's Strongest Man that I've done have been not quite as glamorous, I think, as some of the ones from the 90s.
But, and also because of many times because that casino chain, they focused on established casinos, let's say in Africa, for example.
Yeah.
So you have to bring down all the guys, and there were no escape. Everybody had to stay on the hotel. So you're walking around in circles for 3 weeks, looking at each other, and the whole mental game of it all I kind of enjoy that, you know. It's
Did you like that side? Did you like the mental side and seeing how people kind of prepare before a contest?
I kind of liked it, but it's also a bit silly in the way, because you can see a lot of you can see all the cliches is happening just around you. People are lying their heads off, telling weights they've done, and you know the next guy playing it differently, trying to hide everything away.
Are you saying strongmen lie about what they lift there, Magnus?
No, but so far nobody have said less than they've done, so to speak.
I always like to go with that kind of philosophy. I was like, make them think I'm weaker than I am.
yeah. And it's kind of pointless. Obviously, it's going to show anyway. And I don't know really how it is nowadays, but back then, the qualifying was the nerve-wracking one. It's horrible to get kicked out in the qualifiers, and in the final, as long as you're on the lineup, anything can happen. You know, it's more often than seldom that 1 or 2 or 3 of the favorites will pull out with injuries. Yeah. And but it's horrible to go home in the qualifiers.
I think the qualifiers is actually harder sometimes than the final. There's a lot of pressure. There's only a few guys in each group, so you really have no room for error. If you make one small mistake, it can be very hard to gain enough points to get back in.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it is. You have too few guys, so it's hard to create a gap.
Yeah,
and it's hard to catch up if you would, you know, tremble and fall in something. And then also many guys that you will have always have 1 or 2 of these one-trick pony guys that can do one
really
or 2 events really, really good, and they will for sure have their best events in the qualifying. So it's not so easy.
Yeah. No, I've been in that situation before where you've got 5 events in the qualifying heats, and you just mess up on one event, and it's so hard then to get back in.
Yeah, I've done a few like that, and I've done a few where I totally created the whole problem for myself, like being a bit stupid, a bit big-headed, and created a whole week of problems.
I think I can't remember what the year was, but I think it was in Sun City. You had a deadlift hold, and you went in quite confident. I think a bit, you know, you thought it was going to be easier than it was, and you couldn't lift the car.
No, because I never really been. I had a back injury from early days, a long time before Strongman even. So I know I have a problem in a certain height with my back, and I tried to work around it. In my very end of my career, I was fairly okay. I can start to pull decent deadlifts, not in your numbers, but at least, you know, way more than I could in the past. Yeah. But back then, if I could just put my knees in front of the bar and have like a wheelbarrow handle, I was always okay. And one of the sponsors I had back then was Volvo. So on weekly basis, I was making exhibitions, picking up Volvos and walking around with them, and I could fill them with people and do the same thing. So I knew that I was pretty strong in that movement. Yeah. And I had one powerlifting suit with me, and I didn't really want to stretch it out because I knew they're going to have this event in the finals. I was thinking, save all the gear for that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an easy, I was in the lead anyway, so I was just going to pick it up, stand for average time, and no worries. And I felt like immediately when I started to lift that, shit, this is heavy. It's way more. And even so, maybe I could have done it if I would have treated the first initial pull with like 100% commitment. But, you know, at least if I get strapped down and I pull and I fail, then I need to stand up and kind of reset myself to get any strength. So I knew pretty much straight away I blew it.
But you know what I was getting to with my point is you came back in the final and the same event, and you smashed it.
In the final, I actually watched. I haven't watched a lot of strongman since I retired, but and my kids are getting in the age now, so they haven't really seen what I've done. So they were watching the World's Strongest Man from Sun City 2000, and I watched it, and there's so many memories coming back. And if I don't misremember, I dropped some points in the power test coming into the car deadlift hold. So I had to go out before Mariusz Pudzianowski and some other guys. So I was standing a bit too long time, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then the next coming event was farmer's walk, and I think I would have gained more points if I would have just not been digging so hard in that deadlift hold, because the traps was gone for the rest of the week.
It's a mistake. I think we can all get into the heat of the moment, and you almost push a little bit too hard on some events.
Yeah.
And then it affects the whole performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it was still cool to come back from that, you know, obviously disappointment in the heats, to then go and perform like you did.
Yeah, thank you. And looking back, when I did all these contests, and once in a while I had a good one, and once in a while a bad one, a bad World's Strongest Man could hunt me for 2-3 years, you know. And now looking back, it didn't really matter. With some luck, I could have done way better, and with some bad luck, I could have done way worse. It's a bit of luck of the draw on the day. Nothing is like super strict. If they give one guy 1 inch too high squat, or you know, all these things, they're gonna end up in points, and in the end, it's usually 2-3 points between 2-3 guys.
Yeah.
And so instead of, back then, I had a few contests where I really thought I should have won, and I didn't. And then maybe I had the other way around, but I didn't see that as clearly. And now looking back, I don't really care.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting, because you're one of the first people I've spoke to that has retired from the sport, and obviously I'm kind of in that position myself right now. And it's interesting to look back on your career, because there's always going to be ifs and but moments. I can look back on mine and see many times where I could have done better, or I could have done worse. There was little calls that go either way, and that's just sport. You know, you have to.
Yeah.
You get good calls, you get bad calls. When you look back, it probably evens up, you know, over time. But you had an incredible career, and I think you can be extremely proud of what you've done. I've sort of got to the point now where I accept I've done extremely well. I'm proud of what I've done, and it's taken a lot of pressure off myself, because I think when you're just wanting to compete and compete and compete, you don't let go, and you want to do better all the time, and it does hurt a lot more.
It is, and when you're in it, you're always chasing. And if I felt way more vulnerable then, I felt like if I fail tomorrow, it's all over. And you know, now nobody can really take it away. So, like, obviously, like everybody else, if I could pay $1,000 or $1 million to come back and be 28 again, I would try to find the money. Yeah. But saying that, I really love life right now, and I'm so grateful that I did Strongman. First, I loved the sport. I had a great time with all the guys, and I met so many good people. And the atmosphere, it's something with it. See, one of the best things I ever did was to start in that contest back in '95.
Yeah, I think the friendships that you make along the way are really great about this sport, because it's only, you know, it's a small community. We all know each other, you know, pretty much we all know each other. And I mean, I like I said, when I started getting involved in Strongman and just training in the gym, I remember the World's Strongest Arms video that you did with Sven Carlson and
Yeah.
Colin Bryce. And that was hilarious watching that. You know, you've got Sven holding a pizza book upside down, or a phone book upside down, trying to crack jokes. Colin, you know.
I mean, we were really serious when it came to training and to the contest. I mean, I don't know how many contests the guys do nowadays, but we did way too many. We had roughly one contest every third, every fourth week.
Yeah.
And and then you pick out, let's say, within the group, you're going to pick out 5 of those. This is the major ones. All the ones is more, you win one, I win next one, kind of attitude when you go to them. And the peak of the whole year was always world's strongest man. But then Colin Bryce called me, a company called me and said, if you make a training video, I'm going to buy 10,000 copies of it. It's a giveaway product for our protein brand. And I said, so just call Sven, are you free next weekend? Can you come over? No script, nothing. And we just played around like kids for a few days. And made the most rubbish training DVD ever.
No, it was a great DVD. I loved it. I used to watch it on repeat as a kind of youngster getting into it. I absolutely loved it. And when I knew I was going to interview you, I was just remembering it. Because for anyone that's not seen it, there is some really, really cheesy clips in it.
Yeah. And also what I love with all these films were, we did a few, and everybody always estimate when if you put something on tape in the gym, they think that this is the best bench he ever done in his whole life. Man, you only have, back then I had even less money than I had now. So then you rent the camera guy, you don't need to film everything within a day or two.
Yeah.
So you film the whole day outside, and then you start filming in the gym, and you're going to make the workout when you're totally drained. But everybody thinks the opposite way around. They think you've been focusing for that, whatever you're going to do for weeks.
Yeah. It's like when you've got to do a photo shoot or something like that. You never, for me, I'm always strong at competition. That's when I'm strong. Yeah. I tried to peak when I needed to. So often I'd have people come to film me or take photos, and they ask you to do stupid stuff. Yeah. And then they want you to like hold the back of a car. And they don't get the picture straight away. So then you start shaking and you're struggling.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be strong.
Yeah. It's horrible. I've done that, and especially overhead. Can you pick this guy up, and I'm going to take a photo of it? Yeah. And I've done that so many times. And then when you have the guy trying to look like it's nothing, but you're really dying inside, they can't get the picture right.
No, we've all been there. I think the situations that we get in as strongmen, we've all probably got some funny stories to tell with our size. And I've broken countless chairs. I think the first time I met my wife, I went to her parents' house, and we were sat outside having a barbecue, and I sat on this garden chair and I went straight through it. So it wasn't the best first impression, but I know loads of the guys have similar stories to that. Yeah. Have you got any that you can share?
I have a lot of chairs broken. I have a lot of other things, and also being tall, just being too big, too clumsy. And I know SAS Airlines came up to me once and they said they paid back money 3 times to people next to me because they complained as they're trying to pay back.
I had a chat with Adam Bishop last week, and I was saying to him, when I used to like it going onto the planes, because although I'm a big man, you're a big man, now there's some monsters that compete. So when I was going onto a plane and I'd sit next to this poor guy would be sat next to me, and I'd just look at him and say, you'll be happy in a minute, because then the next thing you got is like Brian Shaw coming past at 200 kilos or one of the other monsters. It's crazy.
Also,
anyway.
when I look back on those days, I remember I did a lot of like tons of exhibitions and stuff like that. And the reality check is far away, because back then I could never really appreciate the weights I was lifting. It was always, this ain't good enough. You can always do more. We were never really pleased with anything. And I could go to a gym and I was maybe aiming to do, 6 reps on something in bench press, and I failed to do 1 or 2, and the whole day was crap. Yeah. And now I'm thinking I must have been stupid. It would have been. It was something was actually pretty good, but I never had you never really appreciate it back then. It's more.
It's really refreshing, I think, to hear this from you, because I train a lot of youngsters. I get asked by people all the time, and to hear you kind of have that more laid back approach is really nice, because I was exactly the same when I was younger. If I had a bad session, I was miserable for 2 or 3 days at a time. I'd let it get to me. And at the end of the day, all we did is lift stuff up and put it back down. Yeah. It's not life and death. And it's nice to see how you've, I mean, I'm going to talk more about this in part 2, but how you've kind of transitioned from strongman to, you know, a different type of career now. Because I think having something to focus on is important for guys like us.
It is. And that was, we're going to maybe talk about that later, but the only small kind of, I had a few months where I was a bit lost when I stopped competing, because everything has, even though I've done a lot of other stuff, but everything have hovered around my results in the gym always. You know, that's, you're worth as much money as you can perform. And then one day you stop and it's totally irrelevant. No, it doesn't really matter if you deadlift 400 or 150.
It makes no difference.
Yeah. And that's a bit hard to cope with in the beginning. And then you just, like you said, you need something else to aim for. And
yeah. Well, we will talk more about that in a bit. Before we go off, though, I want to ask you about your favorite perform or your most memorable World's Strongest Man, because I think you said you've been to 14 World's Strongest Man contests.
Well, I need to.
You need to count it.
I think it's 13 or 14.
You pretty much made the final almost every time.
Yeah, well, yeah. I bombed out in '96, and that I knew when I went I'm gonna fail, because I went to Scotland to do my like everybody else, to do my rookie year there. I did I competed the whole summer, and then the last one was the World Muscle Power Up in Calendar, and then we were supposed to be home for 2 weeks and then fly out to Mauritius. And I got married the week before Mauritius, and that was supposed to be like also the honeymoon.
Yeah.
And I smashed my back in wheelbarrow in World Muscle Power. Okay. So I couldn't. I was done regardless. I knew I couldn't just stay home on that short notice, and so I had to go, and I had to just play it as well as I could. But I was horrible. So it was not even close. And then did I miss something? Then I pulled. I did a hernia in my back 2006, I think, in China.
Yeah.
That was otherwise the strongest I've ever been, I think.
Really?
In the gym, all my bragging weights is made just before China.
It's amazing, isn't it? How you can be at your best and then you get those bad injuries. It's happened to me a number of times where I felt I'm in the best shape of my life, but sometimes you're just pushing that a little bit too hard, and then suddenly the body can't take any more.
Yeah. If I could do everything all again, I would have used a little bit of the knowledge I learned in the end of my career, and that was. I always had the approach where I almost killed myself in training before World's Strongest Man. And then I went, and many times I knew that I have done my homework. I knew that I had the confidence that most people have trained way less than I have. But saying that, a lot of the times I was worn down. And then one time I went, and we were supposed to have children. And I know that Sarah was supposed to arrive just the same week as World's Strongest Man. So I never trained for World's Strongest Man 2004.
Okay.
Because I knew I was not going, but I told all my sponsors and everything that, yeah, sure, I'm training hard for it, but I was not supposed to go. And then Sarah came a few days early, and my wife said, I'm good. Just go.
Go and have some fun.
Yeah. So I just went with no training at all, and I came third. And I was thinking, because, well, I was not in the shape of my life, but I was fresh.
Yeah.
So next time I used a bit of that. So I came, maybe instead of having 4 or 5 days off, I took 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Trained really hard, rested 2 weeks. And I think that's the way I should have done it the whole time. That would have been much better score.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's so easy to push too hard. You know, these contests, they mean so much to us, and you try and you get in that mentality that you've got to be the hardest worker. But sometimes it's about being smart with it as well. And I've certainly learned, you know, I actually got better. When I started training, I was training 11, 12 times a week. I was doing 2 sessions a day, thinking this is what I needed to do. And then I had my first child, And then all I could afford, I could only train 3 to 4 times a week. But I suddenly started improving a lot quicker. Made better progress. I was getting more recovery. And it, certainly as I've got older, I realized that rest is just as important as the hard work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And but so saying, we talked about different world's strongest man, and they all have a different value. For me, the first ones where I went like a tourist, and kind of came back with more than I expected. And then 2-3 years later, I came on the podium. The first podium on World's Strongest Man was magic.
Yeah.
So I was hoping to reach final. Everything above final was bonus. Came home with a third. Next year I won it. And then I had a few years where I actually were in pretty good shape, but for different reasons, it didn't really happen. Yeah. Most of the season, the rest of the season went really well, but in the Worlds, always dropped something or missed something or just, wasn't lucky enough.
As well as me, World's Strongest Man is a tough, it's a long contest. It's not like the one-day shows where you just get on with it. There's a lot of waiting around. There's so much things that get changed last minute. You've really got to mentally be quite prepared for that. And it does put a lot of people, it shocks a lot of people, I think, especially their first time there.
Yeah, it is. And then, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's unfair because it's not, but once in a while, things happen. Like once I went to 2001, they had an arm over arm machine. That was if I can pick one event, that was my absolute best event. So I think the worst I ever came during my 14-year was second. Apart from that one, when I came to second last or third last, and it costed a title because
crazy, isn't it?
Because maybe didn't work as smoothly as it should, but that's how it is.
That's the beauty, I guess, of strongman. Although maybe beauty is the wrong word, but nothing's ever guaranteed.
No, and just like you say, it is what it is. It's a contest where we dedicate ourselves to create the best strength athletes we can be, and but it also has to be a bit of a show, and you just have to accept that it swings both ways. But all in all, it's something with it. I can't really explain what it is. When I stopped, I stayed away from contest for quite a while. I think probably around 10 years before I went to my first strongman contest just to watch it.
After you retired?
Yeah, I was a bit. I'm not going to say afraid, but I was trying to make sure that I would not be one of the guys that just clanged on, and you find them 25 years later being, holding a clock in contest. It's nothing wrong with that, but I was trying to do other things as well.
Yeah, I think it depends on your personality. I'm very similar to you. I think that I don't want to make up numbers. And, if I don't feel I can go to a competition with a legitimate chance of at least being able to perform at my best, then I would rather let someone else go. But it is extremely hard to let go.
It's really hard to let go. And for me, I was blessed that way. I had the privilege to do a lot of years. So one day I woke up, and that thing that's been like the center of the universe for so long was not important anymore. It is a weird feeling that, that all this training to throw up, all these things that we constantly have to do, was more expensive than the price I could win it. And then it's easy to walk away.
Yeah.
But then when you've been away for a while and you came into the arena and you feel the smell and you hear people testing the audio system and all that, and you just wish that somebody can throw a powerlifting belt and you can join the guys.
Last thing I'm going to ask for this first part: which of your World's Strongest Man contests was your favorite? Obviously, you won 98. Sorry,
98.
Would you say that's your favorite? Obviously, winning the title has to be a huge achievement.
Yeah, it's different. I would like to say 3 different ones.
Okay.
For me, of course, the one I won just because of that. I really enjoyed 2001 Zambia. That time, nothing really went my way, but it was a great contest. for some reason, I like that one. And also 2007. I didn't do particularly well that time, but I've been away with a bad back, like a really bad back. My foot is still sleeping after that injury. And it was more for me to prove that I could still come back.
Was that your last year?
It was my second last year.
Okay, so your last.
But honestly, I knew when I was there that this is my last shot at it. I was really trying to do my very best there, and I really enjoyed it. I knew when I was doing it that this is the last time in my life I'm in proper competition shape.
Yeah.
And strength-wise, I was probably the best athlete I've been. Then I was a bit clumsy. I dropped kegs and I did things, and I ended up on 5th place. But I really enjoyed that contest, just knowing that this is it.
Just go and have some fun and do what you can.
Yeah.
So that's what I don't remember you being a 2008 World's Strongest Man.
2008 for me was I should never have gone, and then I decided, okay, let's do one last one, and then I did a Grand Prix before that, and I won the Grand Prix. So I was fairly strong, and I was in good shape, but I didn't feel well.
Was that the Grand Prix in Sweden?
Yeah.
So that was my first international contest.
Really?
You probably don't remember me there, but it was my first international contest, and I zeroed on the bench press.
Yeah, you were. Yeah. Because I was organizing a bit with it. So I was, you know how it is then. You don't really.
Yeah.
I was there physically, but not mentally. And
it's very difficult to organize a show and compete in it. Yeah. People don't realize sometimes there's so much going on. You have to be everywhere. But I remember seeing you as, you know, my first time at a big contest, and although I knew your kind of career was coming to an end, but I was still kind of like a shy school kid that was like seeing a superstar.
Thank you, man. I need to look at that tape, man.
Don't look at it. It's terrible for me.
Because what I did was I did that contest, and like I said, I felt in the gym that I could lift pretty good weights, and I were moving fairly good, but I felt bad. And then I came to Charleston, and you know, we all have to do a medical check before we are allowed to compete.
Yeah.
And all my figures were out the window. I had high blood pressure, high heart rate, and but not only that, everything was bad. So I said, okay, so I did it, but I didn't put any heart in it, and I knew this is my. Let's try to make a sortie with some kind of dignity, and then just go back home. And I came home, and we started to try to figure it out. Especially my kidneys were really bad, but like I said, everything was bad.
Yeah.
And then I took. I was invited to do Dancing with the Stars here in Sweden. And during that time, I didn't lift any weights, not much at all. Maybe 2 times a week or something like that. And during that time, all of a sudden, everything went back to normal. And that's how overtrained I were. Yeah. It's easy to tell everybody else how to play things, but for myself, I've used probably the same training routine as I always did. But I was not 25 anymore. I was 40. And I had 2 kids and 2 companies, and all kinds of pressure. In the past, it was just me, my wife, and the training schedule, and the world was hovering around the training routine.
Yeah, life definitely changes.
Yeah. So when I started to get rested, everything went normal, and then most of the scores came back. And for a split second, I was thinking maybe to start competing again, but then life took a different turn, and I started working with other things.
Well, that's a perfect place to finish part 1, I think, because you've had a lot of interesting things happen since then. So I'd love it if we could talk to you in part 2. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Follow Magnus. He's obviously an amazing strongman, but he's doing so much right now. In part 2, we're going to look at his Dancing with the Stars. I think you actually won that show from memory, and obviously being involved in a lot of acting now. So come back for part 2. We'll see you guys then.